The topic that I'm going to talk about is evidence-based policy and why it matters. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart because of my background and because of how I see things when I'm out in the community. And I'll share with you what it's like dealing with a situation where sometimes the data, the evidence, the research gets kind of put aside and ignored when you have a lot of emotions in the room, right? And so hot topic right now is that one of boarding houses in Irvine. And we just recently discussed this last Tuesday. And it really, I'll just walk you through a little bit of it. It's a policy revision for the enforcement of boarding houses. Sounds fairly simple, but it's not. The city's received many complaints from residents about homes with 10 to 12 students where maintenance is lacking, noise levels are rising, and safety is compromised. We're seeing homes where owners have built illegal walls in living rooms, dining rooms, and garages to rent out to students and other people in the community. So in order to enforce the policy, boarding homes and single housekeeping units were defined and conditional use permits were required for all boarding houses. Now keep in mind, when I asked for the data on this, it turned out that the complaints received were minimally related to UCI students, and the enforcement will continue to be complaint-based. We will not be proactively searching out homes as we are with the short-term rentals, which is the Airbnb issue, and that's another ordinance where short-term rentals are just not allowed in the city. So after sitting down with the city staff and city attorneys, I presented my case, hopefully based on facts, that this is what we're looking at, this is where we're trying to go, and there's a reason behind it. I believe that illegal boarding houses are basically a bandage to our greater issue of affordable housing. And especially in a city where NIMBYism is prevalent, we take this issue of boarding houses as a catalyst to push for more affordable housing, more affordable student housing, or then do we just give in to the boarding house as a bandage and move on? And for me, I don't believe in bandaging as a long-term goal. I believe that we have to get to the root cause of issues and use the bandage as a proponent for us to move forward and advocate for what we really need in our city. And so I chose to support the ordinance, and then the messaging began of the city council criminalizing student housing or students in Irvine. And I'll have to share with you that, things like that really tug at people's hearts. We started getting a lot of emails, we got a lot of phone calls. We had a lot of students and residents that showed up at city council meeting to share their concern. In fact, a really good friend of mine I've known for many years, posted on social media. He's like, I voted for Farrah, and here she is going against criminalizing student housing. So I called her up and I said, did you read the policy? Did you review the meeting minutes? Did you look into this? She's like, no, I didn't have time to, but I'm against criminalizing student housing. So I was like, all right, so this is where we're at, right? It's these kind of like these snapshots of what's happening that people hang on to, and they don't have time to do the research. They don't have time to look into the evidence-based policies, and they're out there because they're passionate. And yes, criminalizing student housing is an offense. It should not be happening. But is it happening here? I don't think so. And we'll get into this a little more later. So for me, I come from a biotech background where I worked my way up to being a regulatory affairs manager for Chiron in Emeryville, which was later bought out by Novartis. And I learned from my time there the importance of working together to create a product that would basically be beneficial to the entire community. It comes from the researchers, it comes from scientists, data analysts, production, testing, quality assurance, regulatory affairs, marketing, sales, and so on and so forth. But it's a community effort that brings the product forward. And because of this, we assure that the product will be what it's meant to be. It's going to help someone with an issue that they have or an ailment that they have. So why do we lack this basic concept of collaboration in science when it comes to making policies affecting our daily lives? In doing some of my research, I read somewhere the term government innovation lab, right? We have our innovation lab here. But this is where political ideologies were set aside to answer the simple question, what works? Because that really is our goal in building policy, is to make sure that they're working for what they say they're going to work for. Imagine a process that includes collaboration, trusting in experts, believing in testing and data, building a policy with facts, free from politics, whose aim is to improve life. That being said, we must push harder for policies that are evidence-based because, one, such policies tend to solve issues by tackling the root cause. Two, they reduce excess spending that usually comes with policies based on trial and error. And three, we just don't have the time anymore. So many times our policies are built on a knee-jerk reaction. When an issue arises that tends to just provide a bandage to the problem with expectations of eliminating the issue. But how are we to eliminate an issue without researching what the root cause is? Sure, it may take a bit longer, but researching out to experts and getting the information necessary to develop a policy that gets to the actual cause of the matter in order to eliminate the issue or make the matter right seems like the optimum method. However, it doesn't give the optics of fixing the problem. And that's where we are today. We have become accustomed to rushing out policies that show the public that we have taken action to fix the problem and receive the accolades. And then later on, in years later, maybe months later, find out it's not working. And that needs to change. Then there's the money. We are one of the richest nations, California being the 5th largest economy, Orange County the 3rd largest county in the state, and here we are in Irvine, one of the fiscally sound cities. I think that's a recent award we just had. So why haven't we solved our housing crisis, our homelessness, or improved our environment? Well, a lot of it has to do with not believing in facts provided by the experts. Take, for example, homelessness. I believe it's like 2007 or 2008 when the Illumination Foundation went up to the county with a 10-year plan to end homelessness. That plan was detailed with cost analysis included from a group of people who researched the issue for many years and did pilot studies with success. The county received the plan, but did not implement the plan. Instead, since then, 2008 till now, 2019, we have tried different things like building more shelters or hiring consultants and all sorts of stuff to end this homeless crisis. But have we ended it? We haven't. Why? Because we set aside some factual data that would have proved that we can end homelessness here in Orange County. So how many times will we waste money on projects that aren't effective? Why aren't we looking at research to see what really works and what doesn't? As of today, we have the data, we know what works, yet we are still in the process of bandaging issues so it continues to bleed and using that as political gains. And that has to stop. And then we get to time. We just don't have the time anymore because people are literally dying because they cannot afford life-saving medication. We know for a fact climate change is real, and we know that housing first is a model that can eliminate homelessness. Now more than ever, we need scientists working with politicians to come up with solutions that are evidence-based with the desired efficacy. And until we do that, we're not going to make any dents in our issues as we move forward. For me, I see a need in trusting the government, the need for precise policies, and the removal of partisanship. At least at the local level, here's how I see it. So wouldn't making evidence-based policies build trust in the government? I think it would, especially when the public is able to see policy work on its behalf for the greater good. And wouldn't it be phenomenal to be able to measure the impact of policies more precisely? It would be amazing to project the impacts of a policy and then actually show in real time how it's working and how it's benefiting the community. And my favorite, Wouldn't hard evidence remove partisanship from policymaking? Many times I've seen policies voted down or ordinances repealed because of party affiliation. When we know the policy would benefit the community and we'd go the opposite direction, what are we really doing? Are we working for the community? I don't think so. This, I feel, is where we lose, and therefore having science-based politicians on both sides of the aisle would be beneficial for everyone. And so how do we get there? Just like there are lobbyists that visit us from time to time, we have the police association, we have the employee association, we have people who want the botanical gardens at the great park, we have people that want a water park. We need our researchers and scientists to bring their data to us. Share with us what works so that we can then improve our current policies and build newer policies with the intention of solving problems for the long run. As a candidate, I had a hard time explaining to voters why traffic was the #1 issue in campaigning since 2008. Each election cycle, that was a top issue everyone would talk about. I'm going to solve traffic. 11 years later, we still haven't solved it. It's because a lot of promises are made, traffic solution plans are shared, but they're just ideas. I'm not a traffic expert. If I throw a plan out there, is it going to work? I don't know. Maybe it just sounds good, and maybe people will buy it. So when I explained to them that our streets were actually built to accommodate the current traffic, and that the amount of lanes that we have on our arterial streets really were built so that we can accommodate the current population, they didn't believe me. In fact, I was at a candidate forum where we were talking about ice shuttles, and I wanted to increase our ice shuttle program. And some of my opponents stepped up and said, there's no way. First of all, there's no funding for ice shuttles, there's no ridership for ice shuttles, and they don't work. Well, that's why you have to win in office, because once I won, I met up with the transportation department, looked into the Orange County Transportation Authority's grants, and find out where we had ridership but were lacking in services. And within 2 months, we were able to start up 2 more routes with the ice shuttle. And no one could say no to that because it was based on evidence. So currently, I've started having roundtable discussions with groups of people, but between 12 to 15, on particular topics. The current one is zero food waste, where we're bringing in residents, we're bringing in businesses, we're bringing in people from waste management, we're bringing in UCI representatives, and anyone that has an interest in zero food waste. And really sitting down and kind of gathering information. What information do you have that you can bring to the table? What can I bring to the table? What are concerns from residents and businesses? And how can we build out a policy to apply zero food waste in all of Irvine? And I believe that with these type of discussions, with these type of ideas, with this type of research, we're actually going to build a policy that works for the long haul. So we can make progress when we bring together thinkers, researchers, policy wonks, and of course politicians. That is the only way forward. But we want to be sure that we don't turn evidence-based policy into a catchphrase. Because I fear sometimes people will use a small study or just a snippet of a study and say, this is why I'm pushing for this policy. And that's going to turn into a routine. And we need to make sure that we avoid that. And that's why having multiple groups involved keeps you from making that mistake. What we need is a policy that has not only a study backing it, but has years of research that is unbiased and shows considerable effects sustained over time. So what do we do in the meantime? We have to grab at people's hearts with catchy facts and figures, because otherwise we're going to be boring. These sound bites that get people emotionally riled up, like my friend I mentioned earlier, are much more effective than our facts and data. I know there's a way forward, and it has to come from our political leadership, and I hope to make a small dent at the local level. But we're going to need some local and national champions to push evidence-based policy forward. And my encouragement to everyone here is lobby for it. Make those connections with elected officials, senior city staff members, and residents. If we can provide real information in bite-sized format, we will help inform people to make the right decisions. And in doing so, we have to be careful to make sure that it is presented in a way that tugs at them. I'll share with you the importance of sharing a story or connecting with the voter or with residents emotionally. Remember, when you share a story with someone or share an emotional moment, they tend to remember that and hold on to it. Then you throwing out facts and figures, that just goes away. So how do we bring our facts and figures into a storytelling format that brings people the information and gets them to enact and move forward on the policy making? That's something that I don't have an answer for, and I'm hoping you will create it and help me. Or as my 17-year-old son says all the time to me when I'm talking about emotions and policies, he says, just remove everyone's amygdala. Amygdala? And we won't have this issue. What? You guys get it, right? Okay. That's what he's researching right now. So in my part, if there's a study that you feel will impact our community and are interested in presenting options for us to develop a policy, I will be more than happy to place you on the agenda at our city council meetings for a presentation. It's a small step, but an important one in the right direction to educating our community, our city staff, and our elected officials. So thank you so much again for this time, and I hope to continue the efforts of bringing people together and really moving forward as a combined collaborative, because that's our way forward to making sure that we are saving lives and our planet at the same time. Thank you.